Okay, this is Rob. How you doing? I got a 2002 Honda Odyssey, and it's got like 240,000 miles. Runs good. Just had some new axle shafts put in it because it's making a vibration. That went away, so I figured, what else did I do? So we bought this new back in 02, 30 grand. Put new headlights in it because they were so fogged up. These wing windows stopped working about 100,000 miles ago, so I read online how to do it. So I figured I'm not showing everything. It's really a pain in the butt to, do. I did this side already, but whatever you do, you just can't yank this part out. You need to take this loose and pull it out enough, because this thing tucks in behind it. See, it's got these little tabs here that tuck into this piece here, right here. Like this, right? So you can't pull them out. You got to pull this out first. I watched some guy's video, and he just popped this out here, and the whole thing fell out. Well, that thing had been already taken out before, because it just doesn't fall out. So once you do that, you get the motor out. So most people can get to that point. Let me get to the interesting part. This is the interesting part. So once you take it off, you take these 3 bolts out. I'll show you when I put it back together on that, but there's this plate here that's on and over this motor, and I leave the motor like that because when I put it back together, you don't want to turn the motor, flop it upside down. And I don't know if, yeah, I can look at it this way. It just has that one dot, and then it has that slit on that side. But so I want that to go in because this goes in like this. This slides in. But this goes on there, and I'll show you in a minute, and then the motor goes into this point. So what happens is once this is on like this, what happens, you can pry it on this end. You can pry it right on this end here, and it'll actually break a seal. There's some kind of glue seal. It's not very hard to do. It'll just pop off. And when you put it back together, I didn't glue it. People don't glue it because when you put it back with these 3 screws here, it'll be like bolted together in this. So don't worry about that. I wouldn't put any more. You could tack something on there, but I just wouldn't worry about it. The trick is this part here, and I already kind of took it out, but I'll put it back when I get done doing what we got to do, which is kind of what I wanted to record. So let's do this. I'm going to put this camera up here. So this piece, if you look at it, give me a second here. This goes actually all the way in, and if you look inside it, you'll have 2 tabs. There's 2 metal tabs in here that the electrical connector plugs in. They're just straight out tabs, and you can see them, copper. You actually have to get this out. It's a real bugger. But what you have to do is, I hope you can see this. So these needle nose in here, because this piece actually will push all the way in. This thing here is high now. It's at that level. You grab it right on that. You grab it on that piece in there and move that needle nose as far down as you can in there. And you have to wiggle and pull. You wiggle it and pull, and it'll pop out of there. See that little piece like that? That goes in there, and that's what's in this piece here. So, and it might tweak a little. That's okay, that's okay. But anyway, so here's the part that people are having trouble with. This part here is 2 pieces of metal, but in between it's some kind of black material that evidently has an issue over time. For ours, it was about 120,000 miles. I don't even know how, I live in a really hot country, so it gets over 100 here in the summers. But at any rate, the windows, I love those wing windows. We haven't had access for about 10 years now until I was reading online. People can buy a new motor for $70, $80, $100, but the motor's fine. It's this piece. One thing you can do in there, I'll point out real quick. Let me take you back to the car real quick. Okay, what I wanted to point out was that's the electrical connector right there, that little gray piece. Okay, you can get a voltmeter. I'll be using it for something else, but you can put one on one side and one on the ground up here, and then push up and down on the rear window. One's up, one's down, right? But one, you can plug in your voltmeter, 12 volts, right? And run one from there to that little screw hole, because that's a good ground right there. And then have someone go in. You got to turn the key on, and then you push down on the wing window, and it should run up to 12 volts. And then you can check the other side, because one moves it up and one moves it down. So check that first, make sure your fuses are good. I'll show you on these real quick where the fuse is. So, because you don't want to take the motor out if you don't have power there. So if you look down in here and you pull this out, okay, not real good, but if you read this, you read it and you'll match up the fuses, but the driver's here and the other, they're 7.5 amp fuses. But there's a schematic right there, it tells you which one it is. Take those fuses out. I did that. Well, check the power first. If you got power, you're okay, it's your motor. If there's no power here, go back up in there, pull a fuse out, and check it for continuity with the meter. I'll show you how to do that in a second too. So that's important before you take all this motor out. You don't have to take the motor off. You can actually unplug the unit, electrical power, and check it with your key on first before you even get to this part. This thing here I pulled out. And it's quite the struggle, because this piece actually has a piece that goes up and down in it here. This is like a telescoping piece. It's stuck right now, but because it's stuck on this edge. But once it goes in, this telescopes down, and there's actually this black piece here that plugs in right in here, right on this little hole. So it's and I pulled it back enough to get the motor out, but one of them I had to use a wrench on it. So anyway, just be careful with this stuff, because you don't want to pull all this out up in here. At any rate, I'm thinking about that, but the less you take apart, the better. Okay. Oh, what a voltmeter is. So, this is the voltmeter here. That's what I'd use inside, that you can check for 12 volts. I use this noise indicator here, and I'm gonna have a hard time here because I only got one hand. Hear that beep? That means there's continuity. So if you actually go ahead and huh? 19.3 ohms. I think the other one when I did it, I got it down to a 1.5 ohms. So I'm going to show you the procedure you do. But this is what I was telling you about the fuse. If you wanted to check fuses, you can like have the fuse out. I mean, you know how to use a ohm meter, so you can check stuff for continuity when you put stuff together and you're touching these two ends. That means the fuse is good. So if you put it on each leg of the fuse and you get the tone, that means you're good to go with the fuse. If you don't, I mean, your fuse could be bad. If it doesn't, you can look and see if it's burnt out. So the issue with this is you got to heat this up. So the tricky thing on this is what I did yesterday, and it's kind of by feel. So you have to, I get it set with these pliers, these vice grips like this. Then I'm going to take my torch and I'm going to heat it up, and I'm going to squeeze it together a little. So I'll get this set up right so you can watch me do this. And I know a lot of people just say do it, but how much heat do you put? So hold on. Let's see if I can make this work here. Okay. I'm going to try to heat it up a little bit on both sides. You can see that. I'm going to go ahead and give it a squeeze now. Okay, so gave it a squeeze. I'm going to wait for it to cool off, but you'll be able to see what I did. Let me get a razor blade, hold on. I'm running it now. I'm having it hooked on. I'm down to 0.2, which is a little less than I wanted, but let me break it loose again and try it again, because think the other one I ended up with a 1. So it shows about 0.7. It starts out higher. It's weird because it'll start out about 1 or so, and then it'll go down. And so I might have squished a little bit too much. Some people go to 0.5, but I did 1.3. This one's 0.4 or something. But anyway, you can see where that black is squished out. So I'm going to actually, let me see if I can show you what I'm doing here. So you can see, and then it says, to trim it basically. So I'm going to, you can see the black trim. So I just trim it flush. I don't know how important this is, trimming it, but maybe it keeps more resistivity inside it. But anyway, just trim it nice and flat, like that. Actually, see, I got some solder out there, so I'm going to probably get a little file and file it down. Go ahead and file it a little. I probably got a little carried away on this one, but I think it'll be okay. So it's probably good. Okay, so let's see, that's okay there. Real happy what I did, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to check it again with the ohm meter, but that's basically what you do. You just have to squish it, heat it so much, and then squish it down a little bit till I got like not even a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so I'm gonna check it one more time here. So it started about 0.8 to 0.2. I'm going to let it run. It's basically a safety feature, so it somehow builds up if you try to force the motor, or the motor binds or something. So I'm not going to worry about it. Worst case is the motor goes out and I end up just buying a new one. But the other one I squeezed down to I squeezed it not as much. This one I squeezed too much, I think. Well, some people say they go to 0.5 ohms, but some is 0.2 or 0.3, which is a little less, but it starts out about 0.8. Yesterday I think it was like 1.1. I just left it at that, and it worked fine. Okay, I'm going to show how this thing goes back together. So hold on here. Basically, this piece is got to go back in this hole a certain way. I mean, that's why I don't want to tweak it around too much. But let me get this out here so if I can. Basically, there's a little hole in there. It goes back together the exact same way that, if you feel like it's off a little, you got to tweak it a little and work with it. But you basically got to get it back in the hole, and, it's not a straight shot. So, if you mess this up, then you can't use it. This motor has to connect right. Struggling here a little. I don't have my glasses on either. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's going in now. You go in there, and then I use a screwdriver and just gently. You really got to be careful. You don't want to bend that tab. And it fits in there a certain way, so you don't want to force it. It's starting to come through now, but I can see the tab here, so I'm going to put this needle nose on it and pull on it. And I heard it click. I heard something click there. Okay. So those are really straight. Look in there. Make sure they're really straight. And I don't know if you can see in there. And then this thing here is a little cockeyed. All right. Yeah, that works like that. One thing I noticed is so this motor, basically I set it up so I can keep the motor like this. So these things will plug in, but you want to make sure that they're plugged in right. This one's still a little high, it looks like. So I'm going to try to play with it a little, get it in the fitting right. Because you want it to sit in there right. It doesn't seem to be sitting right to me. Now if I look at it like that, I pushed it in. This one sticks out, this one doesn't stick out as far. One of the things I noticed too, you don't want it to go on loose in there, so you got to be careful, and you might want to tighten these little things up a little. There, like that. So now I'm gonna put this like this. That's why I want to keep the motor straight. So this is the bottom. I had it like this, because if you don't get it in right, the motor will run backwards, they said. Well, the open will be closed and the closed will be open. So you see how those go in there like that, and you push them in. Now this thing doesn't go completely against it, but you want it to be the same gap all the way around it like that. So that looks pretty good. And remember, yeah, I got one dot here. So now I'm going to try, and I'm hoping this will show in this video. I got to get a better tripod, but is this motor goes, because this thing has a round, it only goes one way in this piece, but you have to go in and cock the motor. This gear down there will actually pivot out a little, and so you gotta, like, you know, make that work and get it in the slot. There's a slot here, so I'm gonna move it a little so I can make sure I'm getting in there. So that's in, and that's pushed all the way in. That is a little motor right there. I'm not going to spin it, but it's a little cog that fits in there, and this thing here is rounded. You can see how rounded it is. So that's all ready to go back together. So all you have to do really now, this was going to show you before, so this was kind of glued on before, but if you fasten it like that, you don't need to re-glue it. So the point is, and this little round thing with the two things fits in the hole here, that little round hole there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in, and then one of the things I'm going to do is get the bolts ready. So you got these 3 bolts, right? So let's put the bolts in. This is what really holds it together, so you don't need to glue it really. So let me get them started. Always get everything started before you try to tighten anything. You know you're doing it right. Yeah. That way it gives it room to, you're not forcing or stripping anything. Just gently start them by hand like that. They're all started by hand. Using 1/4 inch, 10 millimeter, of course. You'll know when it's the same as the bracket that screws it in the car. So that is just about in. Okay, you can see how it bolts in. So that cover is not going anywhere. And that's the cover there where I ended up, when it was out, you can see, you can actually pry it up a little. Actually it moves up a little now, but I haven't tightened the bolts. I'll bolt them down. The only thing negative I could see if that was loose would be that grease could leak out if it was really hot. There's grease in there, but it's not much grease. Okay, it's not much grease. Now it's pretty well tightened down. Okay, so I think I could probably still move that thing if I check. No, it's a little bit, but then this thing here is bolted over I think once this is bolted down to the frame of the vehicle, that little piece there is not going to move. So I think it's good that way. So now let's install it back in the car. Okay, so this little thing in here, I put it in. There's a little ball that slips into this. It's very simple. Don't force anything. I got them all, like, you know, just started. And then this piece here only goes in one way. You'll hear it click. I think it should click. Okay, not click, but it's in. Okay, so the power's up. So what I'll do is I'm gonna just tighten those up and then I'm gonna test it. Here, and you'll be able to see if it works. So I'm gonna go hit it now. I hope you can see it. See what the window does. I'll just stick it here. Right. Yep. Just like that. It is working like a beauty. So now I gotta put this back together. I'm not gonna video this because you need to, everybody's got to make their own way. I did this one the other day over here and it came back together pretty good. It's pretty good. And then I'm gonna open the window up and take the seal out because that'll help me put all the plastic back in. Mine were stuck closed, so I couldn't take the seal out, but a lot of people say take the seal out, but it does help. So I'm going to open the window again and pull the seal around there because the plastic will tuck in better. Alright, and that's it. Fun one to put together, I can tell you that much right now. But basically it's all done. Yeah, all the rubber weather stripping. Yeah, yeah, because that thing slides up and down in there. I had to actually pull that black sleeve out and put soapy water around it to make it slide up and down. It would get stuck on me, so I had some soapy water I used. That was nice, but and then it was really fun because I didn't have this panel off that far where I was able to get my hand in there, and there's a black grommet that goes down in the front of that black vent box, and then you want all this stuff to there. That's all tight now up through there. So anyway, that's kind of the fun deal, but it works good.